Hello, everybody. Welcome to Book Club. This is week 9 of The Artist's Way, a 12-week journey. So we're close to the end, So if in case you don't know, my name is Julie Fei-Fan Balzer. And like it says on the screen, you can find me everywhere as at Balzer Designs. If you're new to, pardon me, if you're new to Book Club, the way that it works is people pop into the comments and they say hello and give their own experience of the book. If you haven't read the book, you can react to some of the things that I'm sharing. I always have a vlog that I put together over the week. And just as a little preview, this is my favorite week of the book. I actually kind of am feeling really great about this book where I've kind of been having trouble with it before. So I'm into it right now, which is great news. I'm happy to share that. I do want to let you know that I'm going to be teaching a free online collage class for World Collage Day. And if you want to sign up for that and get the 6-page printable collage kit that I made, then you can find all of that on my blog at balzerdesigns.typepad.com, or you can just go to my bio and click on the link that is right in there. Okay, so all of that said, why don't we get started? Hi, Tracy. Hi, Donna. Hi, Carol. Thanks for piping into the comments. And hi, Dot. Okay, so let's go ahead and put up the video and do this thing. I'm going to actually begin my day with morning pages. Got my notebook. Let's see if I can get into a more regular habit. So somebody left a comment on YouTube saying, hey, you haven't thrown this book in the trash yet? And I had to laugh because I think I totally would have if it hadn't been for the book club meetings. And I think that's the thing I like about like a book club in general, is it does force you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. And I think sometimes that's good for you. So I hope this is going to be good for me. So week 9, recovering a sense of compassion. This week finds us facing the internal blocks to creativity. It may be tempting to abandon ship at this point. Don't. We'll explore and acknowledge the emotional difficulties that beset us in the past as we've done this already. Oi, let's see what this is going to be about. I love these 2 sentences. The need to be a great artist makes it hard to be an artist. Yes, 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 yes. And I think so many people, that is the paralysis thing, right? You sit down and it has to be like an amazing piece of art instead of you're just making something. And then the second sentence is, the need to produce a great work of art makes it hard to produce any art at all. Yes, I always tell my students, I'm like, make something terrible. Aim for terrible. If it's terrible, then great, you did your goal. If it's better than terrible, well, look at you. Well, I have to say, so far, this is my favorite chapter in the book. So I like this a lot. It says, over any extended period of time, being an artist requires enthusiasm more than discipline. Enthusiasm is not an emotional state. It is a spiritual commitment, a loving surrender to our creative process, a loving recognition of all the creativity around us. I do think that enthusiasm is the thing that carries you through. I mean, I might have called it passion rather than enthusiasm, but this is my main thing that I think I was trying to get at last week and I just wasn't eloquent about it. Which was, when you make art your job, like the way that you have to make a living, I feel like you lose some of the enthusiasm sometimes because the business subsumes it all. But if you can nurture your creativity, I mean, this is part of the reason I'm all over the place. But anyway, this is part of the reason that like the 100-day project and lots of other things, I try to pick topics of things that are like art that's just for me, art that's not public facing, art that's not for my job, art that I just am doing because I like doing it, because I want to maintain the flame of my passion or my enthusiasm. I wish I had started with this chapter. I like so many things here. Listen to this. A productive artist is quite often a happy person. Yes, I've been saying this forever. I don't know, the miserable artist theory, the drunken writer, like all those things, like I think those are myths. Like I think a productive artist is a happy person. Yes. This. So much brilliance. I mean, I gotta stop saying that. So this. So she's talking about some famous actors that she interviewed when she was doing arts coverage. And she says, that she talked to most of them about discouragement, which been talking to them about U-turns. As much as talent, the capacity to avoid or recoup from creative U-turns distinguished their careers. I have been talking about failure, which she's terming as discouragement, for years. I think failure is such a natural part of the creative process, part of the career process, part of everything. And I agree that it is 100% what you do in response to failure that defines like who you are, how successful you are, all that kind of stuff. The very first podcast I ever recorded in 2012, maybe 2011, was about failure and how important it is. So yes, yes, yeah, yes, yes, yes. A successful creative career is always built on successful creative failures. The trick is to survive them. It helps to remember that even our most illustrious artists have taken creative U-turns in their time. Now, I listened to a podcast called How I Built This, which is about people who've built businesses, everything from Southwest Airlines, right, to like companies that make like kombucha, right? So like a wide ranging list of entrepreneurs with all sorts of really successful companies. And always, 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 there are U-turns, there are failures, there are things they had to come back from. Nobody's success story is, I woke up one day and I was incredibly successful and there were no problems. Everybody who's successful has to get past the hurdles and the problems and all that kind of stuff. I love this chapter. So for my artist date this week, I went to Art in Bloom, which is, well, I think it happens at a lot of different museums, but here at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, it's an event where people create flower arrangements that reflect or some way sort of have a conversation with art in the museum. Now, I didn't go alone. I went with my mom and my son. But I think for me to maintain artist dates as a habit, given the time of life that I happen to be in, where like a lot of alone time is not, it's hard for me, that as long as the point of the artist date is to every week go out and seek inspiration to be filled up. And 100%, I was inspired by what I saw and I felt good and I felt excited and all that stuff is true. So I feel like for me, this is a sustainable way of doing artist dates. It was a wonderful event. I think you can see from the photos, like, it's just fun to talk about, like, what do you see in the flower arrangement that's also in the artwork? It was also fun to see my son's reactions to art and talk to him about art. Yeah, it was a good one. So I'm currently in the midst of the task of reading my morning pages. And I thought it would be acutely painful, and parts of it kind of are. But I'm actually really getting something out of it. And part of it is so I'm taking my notes, or I've been doing my morning pages in a Cornell notebook. In case you don't know what that is, there you go. It looks like this. So you write in this section. And then, so traditionally, like when you're taking notes in a class, right, you would write your notes here, and then you would go back later, read the notes, and pull out the important topics here, and then you would write at the bottom some like sort of major thoughts. So my thinking originally when I got this notebook to do the morning pages had been like, oh, there are going to be so many like pearls of wisdom that I'm going to come up with that I'm going to just, the Cornell notebook will be super useful. And I don't know totally that it has turned out that way, but a couple of things that I've written in the margin are basically like pull quotes from myself that I thought actually were kind of good. Like I wrote, I need to find the joy in my creative work. I know that I can reach my goals if I keep trying. A question for myself, why does it have to be useful? I mean, so there are a couple things that are useful, but I would say for like every page that I've written, I probably have like one or two things to pull out, but that's actually great. The other thing is, I think, what are we in, week 8? I can't even remember now. Are we in week 8? It's far enough from when I first started writing that like some of the ideas I'm like, oh, that's something I'm still grappling with. Oh, that's something I wrote that I wanted to do that I still haven't done. And like, that's a good reminder to myself. So I've pulled some tasks out. I'm not saying I'm a morning page convert, but I feel like rereading them has actually showed me the value in them as opposed to just sort of doing them and never looking at them again. So I actually kind of feel re-energized. Also, I think you can see me from space in this shirt. I have to say that I think that I'm rereading the chapter. I try to read the chapter sort of at the beginning of the week and then again at the end of the week. So I'm rereading it now at the end of the week. And I'm thinking that this whole idea of enthusiasm has come just at the right time for me. I feel like I'm a little bit at a crossroads right now with what I'm doing creatively and kind of how I'm running my business and all that kind of stuff. And just the chapter on enthusiasm is hitting me today like really, really hard. And just enthusiasm is an ongoing energy supply tapped into the flow of life itself. Enthusiasm is grounded in play, not work. Far from being a brain numb soldier, our artist is actually our child within, our inner playmate. As with all playmates, it is joy, not duty, that makes for a lasting bond. And I think I'm just really overwhelmed with work right now. There have been some unexpected financial things. Everybody in this family has needed like major dental work. And so I'm like a little bit panicky about money, which then sort of sucks the joy out of making art, because when you make the things you enjoy, your career, things get conflated. Anyway, all of that is to say, I really needed to just think about enthusiasm right now and remember that I love making art and go towards those things that I love about it. This one, list for yourself your creative goals for the year, list for yourselves your creative goals for the month, list for yourself your creative goals for the week. I think a lot of times I focus too much on this, like the things that I need to get done, like a to-do list, and less about sort of the big picture stuff. Again, I think I also conflate like my business goals and my creative goals, and I really want to focus more mindfully on my creative goals. As a side note, I'm using the same notebook for my morning pages that I do for all these tasks. And actually in the rereading, that's been really useful because I kind of don't know what's a task and what's a morning page. And so it's just a lot of thoughts. And so I like having them all in one place. So let's check in. How many days this week did you do your morning pages? 3 or 4 is what I would say. But again, it was the analysis that I really liked. Regarding your U-turns, have you allowed yourself a shift towards compassion, at least on the page? I'm a U-turn person. I make tons of mistakes. I have no shame about it, fail a lot, and I'm cool with it. Did you do your artist date this week? I did, and I showed you that from Art and Bloom. Have you kept the emphasis on fun? So this gets back to the idea that I have, which is if you have to do something that's fun, like things that are fun for me to do are things with other people. So I will always do artist date with other people, and I will be unapologetic about it. Did you experience any synchronicity this week? So I think we covered this last week, but synchronicity, the idea of it is something that I'm not sure I quite get. I think synchronicity, the way that Julia Cameron explains it in the book, is a lot about like put it into the universe and you'll get it back. It's a little like a vision board to me. Like, I want to be rich. I dream of money. I'm thinking of being rich. I want to have money. I tell everybody I'm going to be rich, and then I'm rich, right? I think it's a little more complicated than that. And I found this blog post by April Julia, and it says, synchronicity is the power of manifestation. So that's that whole like, I want to marry Pedro Pascal. There he is. And then of making things happen, of initiative and setting things in motion. So the second half of that sentence that she says, so initiative and setting things in motion, for me, I think that's what I'm going to have to take synchronicity to be. So like, did you do something based on something that came your way? Meaning if opportunity knocked, did you answer the door? Oh, I think that's a really good, I just talked this out, you guys, and I figured it out. So for me, I think I'm going to take, I better write this in my notebook. I'm going to take synchronicity to mean if opportunity knocks, you answer the door and do something about it. So have I had any synchronicity this week? No, opportunity has not knocked this week, but I'm going to listen for the door and maybe yell a few things that I want. And then finally, were there any issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? Describe them. No. I think this is always the hardest question for me because I think I have trouble with the idea of recovery. But maybe that's because I have a negative connotation with recovery. Like if in your recovery, it means that there was something wrong with you and you're coming back to normal. And I don't know that that's, I don't know that that's how I would put it. Like if you're sick, there's something wrong with you. And so you recover from being sick by coming back to being healthy, right? So does that mean that if you're like not creative or not feeling creative, or if you're, creatively blocked, basically that you're sick and you need to come back to normal, and that a normal state is to be creative? I don't know. Also, the word normal is problematic. Also. So I guess, you know what, I'll just end this week with, I really like this quote that she uses. We learn to do something by doing it. There is no other way. That's from John Holt. I am a huge believer in experiential learning. It's why one of the first things that I will say when a student asks me, what happens if I mix X with Y? I'll be like, do it. See what happens, because you only learn by doing. And I think fear of failure, right, keeps us from trying those things, but you only learn from doing. Okay. So go ahead and pop into the comments. Let me know your reactions to this week. Pardon me. Did you also feel really have a really positive reaction to the whole chapter, or did you have a really negative reaction? How are you feeling about the reviewing of morning pages? All that kind of stuff. I'd love to know sort of where you're at as well. A couple things came up during the vlog. Carol said that she totally agrees with how a book club introduced you to things you never would have done otherwise. Yeah, pardon me. Every book club I've ever been involved in, I've read things I wouldn't have. I've heard people's opinions that have surprised me or changed my perspective. And it always just reminds me that we are all so different and we all think so differently. This totally reminds me, Carol, you reminded me of this, and now I have to look this up on my phone to read it to you. Pardon me. I have a cold as always. Okay, so this is a quote that I found earlier today, and I had to share it on Instagram because I just really agreed with it. And it says, a huge component of the value of artistic work is a story behind the art. Not materials, words, brushstrokes, or notes. It's about the artist, their journey, who they are, what their story brings to the art. An artist who paints like Picasso will never have Picasso's story. A writer who writes like Toni Morrison will never have Toni Morrison's story. Anyway, they're actually talking about it in the context of AI, why AI won't replace real artists. But it made me think about how your voice, your individuality is so important, and how one of the things that book clubs and group conversations does is that it makes it so that you realize how your voice might be different from someone else's, because your brain thinks differently and you are different, Pardon me. Sherry says, it's so wonderful to hear your positive reaction to this chapter. My 1%. Yeah, 1% better. Wouldn't it be great if I could finish the 12 weeks of this book and just have taken from it, a spark of joy, or just change my attitude about things, or one of the things that I've, written in the margins of my notebook comes home in a really good way. So I think that's all really exciting. Sherry also says, much alone time is not available to you at this time in your son's life. That's also true. And I always think this is the thing. We all have seasons of life. And it could be you're really busy at work. You're taking care of a, relative. You're, doing whatever it is that's, just eating your time. And so it's unfair to think that we could all approach things, with the same, abilities. So I think it's always good to sort of acknowledge where you are, what your limitations may be, and then find a way to make it work within the limitations. So I've given up the idea that morning pages will be every day for me. I am never going to get to every day on them. And I'm cool with that, because I can see from reviewing that even though there are weeks that I didn't do them at all, because for a while I did some stuff in a sketchbook instead. And there are most weeks I've only done 2 to 4 times, but there's still enough content here for me to get, I think, a lot of value out of it in the end. And so I think sometimes we do this thing where we're very puritanical, and it's kind of like an all or nothing. I'm going to exercise 7 days a week, and then you don't do it, and you only do it 3 and you feel like a failure, as opposed to saying, oh my gosh, you exercise 3 times this week. That's amazing. So I've decided to feel that way about morning pages. If I do it once in a week, imagine what that would be over a year. Imagine how many notebooks you could fill up over time, even at once a week. So again, I think it's just thinking about how you can sort of lift yourself up in that 1%, those small ways, right? Sherry says, I love that about you and your teaching style. Let's see what happens taught me a lot. Yes. You only learn by doing. I really, really believe it. I mean, perhaps, so I happen to really believe in Howard Gardner's learning styles. And in the case you don't know that, Howard Gardner is an educator. And one of the things that he talks about is that people have different learning styles. Some people learn by reading. Some people learn by hearing it. They're auditory learners. Some people learn by like using their body. So like if you had a lesson on birds, somebody would do better listening to like the book out. Somebody better actually read the book. Somebody would do better if you showed them like how to move their arms like a bird's wings go, then they would understand like airflow. For me, it has always been like if I made a model of a bird, I would 100% know everything about birds at the end of that. And so I think maybe that's why I'm an artist, but I think like for me, the doing of anything is the learning. And so that's why I subscribe to that theory 100%. Kathleen says, at the end of the month, I reread my morning pages and at the end of the month, I reread my morning pages and take notes for things I may write about in my blog, notes for a project, insights, etc. Always there is such richness in them. Yes. I think the review is so important. I think I was very worried because the first 8 chapters of this book, not to mention the entire introduction, pardon me, the big tenet in it is morning pages are not meant to be read. Just leave them alone. And so I kept thinking like, well, you're just generating all this crap, right? But like, what's the point? And this is it. This is the point. The point is that somewhere you can find a little something, you know, to make it a little bit better. So I think that's awesome. Dot says, I love the way you're doing morning pages. Thank you, Dot. I appreciate that because I know you are a morning pages person. Donna says, I agree. I personally prefer singer-songwriters because this is their voice, no pun intended. Someone can have a beautiful voice but lacks the investment. Oh my gosh. So my mom is a huge American Idol fan. And this morning she showed me her favorite person on Idol. And I was thinking that like one of the things about American Idol that like sometimes I'm just like not that interested in is I feel like there are a lot of people who like, wow, you can sing. Wow, you're good looking. Wow, you've got like whatever, but you don't feel connected to the song, right? They don't like have that ownership of the song. It's like they're just a voice singing a song. They're not doing kind of like the storytelling of it, I guess is the best way that I would put it. So yeah, totally, totally agree. Isn't it interesting how our attitude changes our attitude? That is always true. I think it's the same thing as like you in any situation, you don't have control over what happens, but you have control over your attitude about it, you know? Yeah, this book was written before the acceptance of you do you. You can definitely adapt the concepts to your own life. 100%. And like, if I were to write my own version of The Artist Way, I would start here. I would start with the joy. I would skip all the like dragging up the past and like dredging through everything you're angry about and thinking about all the things that make you unhappy and being concerned about how other people are hurting you. And I would just be like, let's start with the joy. Let's go towards the joy. Let's bring a huge joy bubble. And I think the more I think about it, the thing about it, and this is, oh, I hate that we have to talk about God again, but just for a second, part of the issue I have with God is I just have trouble with the idea of like the idea of like an angry God, the idea of like a God who like does terrible things, the idea of a God who would let like children suffer, like all those kinds of things, right? I cannot stand that idea. I don't like it. And I just think it's, you know, I don't know why you would worship somebody who would hurt. Anyway, regardless. So I think like part of my problem with the whole sort of beginning 2/3 of the book is I just feel like it's wallowing in negativity. It's like, instead of making creativity feel like something joyous, it's making it seem like you're a failure if you're not creative and like you've been beat down. I don't know. I just don't like it. So I want to go towards joy. So I think I really, really like, that's why I like this part. So, pardon me. And so Carol says, if there's something I want to remember, I put it in the margins of my morning pages notebook. Yes, that's a great tip. Or at the top. 100%. And I think like I totally do that. Like that thing I wrote about synchronicity, it's the last note in my book here. And it says, if opportunity knocks, you answer it and do something about it. Because these are the things that I want to remember. So yeah, I'm feeling super good about things right now. And I'm really hopeful that chapter 10, let's see, chapter 10 next week is recovering a sense of self-protection. So I'm going to be interesting to see. This says, this week we explore the perils that can ambush us on our creative path. Because creativity is a spiritual issue, many of the perils are spiritual perils. In the essays, tasks, and exercises of this week, we search out the toxic patterns we cling to that block our creative flow. Oh, I hope we're not taking a step backwards. I hope we're not taking a step backwards to wallow in negativity again. Anyway, so Carol says, yes, you hit the nail on the head. The first 2/3 of the book was more of a downer, while chapter 9 celebrates the joy. Yes, and I'm here for the joy. When it comes to God, you do you. If you want, create a relationship with God of your understanding, not someone else's. Also a very good point. I think that there are plenty of ways to have a very positive relationship with a God that works for you, which is always important. And I think like if we take one thing away, it should be you do you. And that part of what has tamped people down throughout time so that they don't feel creative, part of that thing about like why people have to recover is because somebody basically said, don't do you, do what I say. You can't do you. And I think like it's so great that right now we are living in a you do you culture. And hopefully that will make many more people feel more creative, more like themselves, more happy, more joyful, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm just reminded how grateful I am to like be able to make art and to help other people make art, because one of the reasons I like to teach is joy. Because my goal when I go into a class, whether it's on Zoom or in person or whatever, is to make every single person in that room have a joyful experience. And when people start to get negative and in their heads or whatever, that's literally like the thing that drives me the most crazy, that I start to be like a dancing monkey trying to get them out of there, because it's so important to me that people connect art making with joy. And I don't know why I can't always do that for myself, but I would say like that's the thing that I am taking away from this week. That's the thing that I'm taking away. And Tracy says, love your focus on joy. Thank you, Tracy. So let's all have a wonderful and joyful week as we go into week 10. As always, I appreciate you being here. I can't believe we've only got 3 weeks left of the book. I'm really excited to sort of see where we're at the end. I hope that the rest of the book will head towards joy, because I think we all need a little joy in our lives. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.